Okay, welcome back to the channel. We're going to go through this one kind of quick because I've made a video on it before, but I'm still seeing this argument in places, and it needs to be addressed once and for all. From the thumbnail, you may think that I'm a Muslim. I am not Muslim. I am a non-trinitarian Christian. However, I see Trinitarians use this argument against non-Trinitarians and against Muslims all the time. So I'm addressing it once and for all. Oiden does not mean tell. It does not mean declare. Nothing of the sort. So in Matthew 24:36 and and Mark 13:32, when Jesus talks about not knowing the day or the hour, right? There is nothing in the word oiden that says that it's not his duty to declare it, that it's only the Father's job to declare it, okay? That is made up, it's false, it's absolutely incorrect. I'm going to show you why. Spend any time in the Christian apologetic space on YouTube, you'll run into people like Avery, who goes by the moniker God Logic. You'll run into people like Fearless Truth, Sam Shamoon, Anthony Rogers, right? All of these people who are biased to the Trinity, presenting this idea, usually as a way to refute, like I said, Muslims or non-Trinitarians. Because Muslims and non-Trinitarians make a very valid point. If Jesus is God and he's all-knowing, how could he not know the day or the hour, right? So these Trinitarians come in and they're like, oh, he does know, but knows, oiden, in this verse means to tell or declare, right? So they're saying that no one declares the day or the hour but the Father. This is wrong. It's 1000% wrong. Stick with me to the end. I'm going to show you why. They get this idea from a couple of places, right? One is the Strong's Concordance. They'll come here. I've seen literally a photo on Avery's channel where he talks about listed here because of the exhaustive concordance, because you see tell, right down here. He's like, yeah, oiden can mean tell or to declare because you see this listed here. So that's the first place that they get this idea from, is Strong's Concordance. The second place that they get this idea from is, they always try to go back to the old Greek bishops and everything like that. I refuse to call them fathers. I won't do it because the Bible says you should call no man father but God. And it's not talking about like your parent, like your dad or something like that. So I don't call these old church bishops by the name father. I don't do it. I won't do it. So anyway, these old bishops, these early Christian bishops, there are a few of them that presented this idea, right? And the one that these Trinitarians always go to that's the closest to Jesus' time is St. Augustine. St. Augustine, he had this idea that knows here means tell, the whole declaration thing, right? But here's the thing that they don't tell you when they bring this up. Augustine died like 20 years before the Council of Chalcedon happened. And Chalcedon was where they formally formulated the doctrine of the hypostatic union, right? The dual natures thing, like Jesus can both know and not know at the same time, right? That didn't happen till Chalcedon, okay? Augustine died 20 years before that happened. So while he was alive, they didn't have that excuse to fall back on. So he comes up with this whole oiden meaning tell or declare thing, not because it's legitimate, but because he didn't have a good enough explanation for why Jesus could not know this. So he just made this up. And he's arguably the first person to champion this idea, at least the one that we know of. There may have been other people bouncing this idea around as well, but as far as like the historical record, he's the earliest one that we know of that's kind of talking about this idea. But again, it's because he didn't have a better alternative. So he just had to make something up, okay? So that that claim that Augustine was saying this really means nothing because Chalcedon hadn't happened yet. And not even that Chalcedon and the hypostatic union is a better explanation. Like, that's still a crap explanation, too. It flies in the face of all logic that we know of. But it's a better explanation than this, than saying that Oiden means tell. Because it clearly does not. Okay, so we got down, like, their early support, quote-unquote, for why they think this. So they always come here. They always run to Strong's Concordance, and they're like, look, it says tell. Oiden can clearly mean to tell or declare, right? No. Strong's Concordance is not a lexicon. It's a concordance. And I know that most of these people, these Trinitarian apologists, really don't do the necessary research to truly understand what it is that they're talking about. I know that factually because they're making this argument. A concordance is not a dictionary definition of terms. It's an index. It indexes, based on a specific translation, what English word was used to convey the corresponding Greek term, right? So all that this is, all of these, like, Strong's Concordance words and everything, right? These are all the English words that were chosen to convey Oiden or its other forms in the text that they're translated from, right? So you may be thinking, okay, well, if they used tell, doesn't that obviously mean that in one case where Oiden or its various forms are used, that it has to mean tell, right? No. That's not what that means, okay? And I'm going to show you why. You'll notice here, again, this is the summary for Edo, which is the root form of Oiden. You'll notice here where it says all of these: be aware, behold, consider, can, acknowledge, right, perceive, see, be sure, tell, understand. You'll notice that these are all listed next to the KJV. And this is incredibly important because Strong's Concordance was based off of the King James translation of the Bible. So all of Strong's entries are indexed based off the KJV. So we go back to the previous question. Why is tell there listed alongside Edo if it doesn't mean to tell? And that is because of Matthew 21:27 and the parallel accounts in Mark 11:33 and Luke 20:7. Here's what this verse says. This is when Jesus asks them whether John's baptisms were from man or from heaven, right? And this is their response to him. And answering Jesus, they said, "Not do we know." Said to them also he, "Neither I tell you by what authority these things I do." Right? So the context. The Pharisees come to Jesus and they're like, "By what authority are you doing these things?" And he's like, "I'll ask you a question. If you can answer this question, I'll tell you by what authority I do these things." And then he asks them, John's baptisms, were they from heaven or from man? And you know what? Let's just go to the chapter, actually. 27, right? Okay, I'll ask you one thing, which if you tell me, I also to you will say by what authority these things I do. The baptism of John, from where was it? From heaven or from men? Right? Okay, so they begin reasoning amongst themselves. They say, if we say from heaven, he will say to us, why don't you believe me? If, however, we should say from men, we fear the crowd because they held John the Baptist as a prophet from God, right? So if they say it's just from men, they're denying that John was a prophet and the people believed he was a prophet. So then we get to verse 27, right? And answering Jesus, they said, "Not do we know." Said to them also, "Well, then neither am I going to tell you by what authority these things I do." So they're saying we don't know, right? Because they can't answer one way or the other. They answer from heaven, Jesus will say, "Why don't you believe me?" They answer from men, they fear the crowd. So their answer is, we don't know. Oidemen. So again, why is this significant in terms of the KJV and tell being tied to Oiden? The KJV renders this specific verse in an Old English idiomatic way of speaking. Okay, so every translation, right? So they answered Jesus, "We don't know." Then he said, neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things. We don't know, we don't know, we don't know, we don't know, right? We don't have the knowledge. Then you get to the King James Bible, which again is what Strong's is based off of. And they answered Jesus and said, we cannot tell. And he said unto them, neither tell I you by what authority I do these things. This is the whole reason why tell is listed next to Oiden in Strong's Concordance. We cannot tell. And this is an Old English idiomatic way of speaking that we actually still use today, right? I'll give you an example. Let's say you're at the grocery store with your friend, and off in the distance you see someone wearing a hat that looks like an actor. I don't know, we'll say Robert Downey Jr., right? So you tap your buddy on the arm, you're like, hey man, that guy in the hat over there, you see him? Is that Robert Downey Jr.? And he looks for a moment, he's like, with the hat on, I can't tell. What is your friend saying to you? Think about this for a moment. Is he saying, with that hat on, I know whether it is or whether it's not, but I can't make that known to you? Or is he saying, with the hat on, I don't know. I'm not sure whether or not that's Robert Downey Jr. Right? I'll give you another example. You're climbing Mount Everest. Okay? You have no idea how far you are from the summit, but you ask your guide, hey man, how close are we? And he kind of leans back, looks toward the top of the mountain. I can't tell. Is he telling you right there with that answer, I know how far away we are from the tippy top, and I can't make that known to you? No. He's telling you based on whatever conditions, where you are on the mountain, how much, like how the visibility is, right? He's telling you he doesn't know for sure based on a set of circumstances, right? It's an idiomatic English way of talking to express the idea of we don't have enough information to say. We don't know. Again, the King James Bible rendered we don't know as we cannot tell. And we know even further that them saying we cannot tell is not them telling Jesus, we can't declare this to you. Because when we go back to the interlinear, it uses oidemen, right? And then he, Jesus, says what would arguably be used, or which would arguably be the same version of tell, right? They're like, we can't tell you that, if oiden means tell, or to declare, right? We can't declare that to you. And he responds in kind, well, neither can I tell you, or neither can I declare to you by what authority these things I do, right? And you'd expect to see the same word if those two ideas are identical, which they're not. The Pharisees use oidemen. Jesus uses lego. Okay, that's because lego means to tell. It means to declare the information. Oiden does not mean tell. It carries no connotation anywhere. You cannot find it in a single lexicon with tell as a definition. The only thing you can find it in is Strong's Concordance. Again, not because it means tell, but because the King James Bible, which Strong's is based from, renders we don't know with we cannot tell. An Old English idiomatic way of speech. We cannot tell. They're not saying we can't declare this to you. They're saying we don't have enough information. So we don't know. We cannot say because we don't know. Right, so we've got that down, okay? I pulled up the BDAG, found Oida, right? I found specifically where Matthew 24:36 and Mark 13:32 are referenced. And it follows under the H definition of definition 1 for oida, to have information about, right? To know, okay? Then you get to here where it's followed by peri. Basically means like about or concerning, right? So if it follows this word, this right here means like about what or about that. So if it follows this, then it means to know about something, right? To have the information about something. And we see here in the interlinear for Matthew 21, or not 21:27, I'm sorry, for Matthew 24:36, peri is the first word of the verse, concerning the day or the hour. About that day or hour, no one knows. No one knows about something. Not even Jesus. Nothing to do with declaration. Nothing to do with revealing or telling. I went a step further and I looked up the Lunita, or the Lo-Nita, however you want to pronounce it. This is another lexicon, right? It's categorized a little differently. It's not categorized by Greek words. It's categorized by like the English equivalents. So for everything related to knowing and knowledge, it falls under number 28, right? There's one specifically here, category C, clearly shown revealed, right? You can click on this to see all instances, to make known, right? To reveal, right? None of these corresponding Greek words are Oiden in any of its forms. None of them. Not a single one. To make known, verify, right? None of them. You go back to know. Oida, right there. Oida, to know how to. Again, lexicons are definitions. And there is no lexicon where tell is listed as a definition of oida. All that lists that is Strong's, which is a concordance. It's an index. It's not a definition. And here's another thing, because I know how Trinitarians get, man. They'll look at this, right? Even disregarding what I just said about Jesus using Lego in the same fashion as telling as what they would try to argue this means from the KJV, right? I know that they would try to twist it that way. Oh, well, they're saying they can't declare it to him, right? That's what the Pharisees are saying. That's not what it means, but I can very easily see them twisting it in that way. And I have a counterpoint to exactly prove that that's not what it means, even if they try to make that argument. And that's John 9:21, where the same word, oidemen, how presently he sees, we don't know, or who opened the eyes of him, we don't know. And you can go to the KJV for this verse, and it says, but by what means he now seeth, we know not, or who hath opened his eyes, we know not. It's the same exact verb, all right, look, perfect, indicative, active, first person, plural, right? Remember that. Perfect, indicative, active, first person, plural. Same thing down here. Perfect, indicative, active, first person, plural, right? Go back to Matthew 21:27. Perfect, indicative, active, first person, plural. It's the same. It's exactly the same. They're saying we don't know. The King James Bible, for whatever reason, just represented Matthew 21:27 and Mark 11:33 and Luke 27 as we can't tell. It doesn't mean tell. It doesn't mean to declare. These verses are the only reason tell is listed next to Strong's, which coincidentally I couldn't actually find a version to pull up, but the strongest NASB exhaustive concordance, right? The New American Standard Bible is largely based off of the King James, okay? And it uses a similar numbering structure to Strong's. So let's actually go back to this, right? We'll go to the parallel. I'm sorry, not this one. Matthew 21:27. We'll go to the parallel for this. Okay, so we've already established the King James Bible says we cannot tell, right? The New American Standard Bible says we do not know, because that is what is actually being said, right? The strongest NASB exhaustive concordance, when you go to the entry for Oiden, or oida, whatever, right? When you get to this in the strongest exhaustive concordance, I don't know if they have it on here. Yeah, I don't think they have it on Bible Hub. Yeah, see? The NAS exhaustive concordance, right? This is the point that I was trying to make. So you see it in, right? So when you go to just Strong's exhaustive concordance, again, based on the KJV, tell is in there. Again, just because of Matthew 21:27. But then you go to it in the NAS exhaustive concordance, where they've changed the translation to what it should read, as we don't know. And now tell is no longer in the list of... It's no longer listed as an indexed word. You can't find tell in the NAS exhaustive concordance. Why? Because, again, a concordance is just an index, and it's not a dictionary definition. When they changed Matthew 21:27 to now read, we don't know, there's no reason to index Oiden with tell. Again, Strong's is based off the King James. The NASB is a translation which is sourced kind of from the King James Bible, but they changed it to what it should actually say. So the NAS concordance no longer says tell when you look at the entry for oida. It doesn't mean tell. It doesn't mean declare. That is false. I would much rather... I don't believe in the Trinity, right? But I would much rather see people fall back on the hypostatic union argument, as dumb as that is, as opposed to trying to convince people that Edo can mean tell. That is just blatantly incorrect, demonstrably false, as I've shown here. It doesn't mean that. It's never meant that. And what Jesus is saying in these verses is that he doesn't possess the knowledge. Trinitarians need to stop trying to explain this away with absolutely baseless, incorrect arguments, and instead deal with what the text is saying. If it's countering your doctrine, there's a reason for that. You can't just make something up like Augustine did just because you don't like what it's saying. Anyway, I just wanted to go over that because I keep seeing people make this argument when trying to refute non-Trinitarians and Muslims, and it's so wrong. It's so bad. It's just factually incorrect. So don't let them get away with this. Challenge them on this. If they say that, show them, make them prove to you where in a lexicon they can find that it means tell. They won't be able to. So they'll go to Strong's, right? And then you pull up Matthew 21:27. That's why it's in Strong's. You don't let them pull that crap. Okay, you pulled up Strong's. That's an index. It's not a lexicon. That's not a definition. That's just an index of what English term was used in translation. And then you show them 21:27. And then you show them John 9:21, where the same perfect indicative active first person plural form is used, right? Again, Matthew 21:27, right? Oidemen. It's exactly the same as in Matthew 21:27. The KJV just rendered it as we cannot tell. Don't let them get away with this crap. Press them hard on it. Make them admit that it's not a valid argument. They bring up Augustine believed it. Yeah, okay, what did he base that off of? It's obviously not the Greek language. The Chalcedon didn't happen yet, so there was no hypostatic union that had been formulated? Okay, well, he made it up then. Anyway, I hope that helps you guys. Don't let them pull this crap, and do the proper research. If something doesn't make sense, research it. Research it hard. Get deep into the text, man. Figure out why they're saying the things that they do. And when you figure out that their claims are baseless, stop listening to them. Because they obviously just want to win the argument. I get it, dude. I really do. It's much easier to go to someone and say, oh yeah, Oiden means tell, than to actually have a conversation where your doctrine is being challenged. I get it. But if you're a Trinitarian watching this and you've used this argument, don't do that. It's dishonest. It's not good exegesis. And you're choosing simplicity versus accuracy. So, anyway, I just wanted to get that out real quick. Hope you guys have a good one. Catch you in the next one.